Hello and good evening. Whoa, that is way too loud all of a sudden. I started. Have I been muted the entire time? Did anyone?
We
Apparently, I
did.
had no sound. Okay, I guess I'll start over. But at least we're all on screen right now. So, good evening. We are joined by an amazing panel of experts and activists, and Ida, the co-director of our video on Iranian transnational repression, to talk about the broader topic of transnational repression today. I guess we can go straight into presentations. Uh, I don't know if you're seeing yourselves in the same order as I do. So I guess, yeah, Ozzy, if you want to start.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ozzy. I use they them pronouns. I don't know what I should say. I just should just say my name or what the fuck I'm doing as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that
I'm
sounds
just
good.
yes. The answer is yes. Hi, what am I doing? I have been part of the Woman Life Freedom Collective in Berlin. We have been um working and organizing a lot on the streets in Berlin, and also like organizing on social media, trying to um kind of talk a lot about what's happening in Iran and within the pretty much from September of 2022 onwards, until like a year ago. And I singularly have been like making content, like I always also say it like this. I was like a stupid TikToker before this revolution started in Iran, and then I like used kind of my platform to talk more and more about political topics and giving more insight from kind of like a first-hand experience, first-hand perspective and first-hand experience, of kind of like going a little bit beyond this journalistic approach of what you can see on social on news, but like rather talking a little bit more about insiders, and trying to be this bridge between these two different realms of being. And I think that's it. I did not really think about how I introduced myself because I thought you would introduce me, but I thank you. I'm really thankful for this opportunity to introduce myself.
Before we move on to Arsu, let me just start recording the meeting so we just have an additional redundancy here. Start recording there. And hopefully I can just close this and that should work. Okay. Arsu, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Well, good evening to the audience tuning in to listen to us tonight, or good morning or afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. My name is Arzu Gebula. I am a freelance journalist, originally from Azerbaijan, based in Istanbul. I cover Azerbaijan, similar to, I guess, Ozzy's story, trying to explain what's happening in the country as an Azerbaijani for foreign audience. Um, knowing the nuances and the context and the narrative. And I've been also working as a regional editor for South Caucasus and Turkey at Global Voices, involved in too many projects at the same time on far too many topics, but all very much related. I've done some work on authoritarian technology, on digital transnational repression, on internet freedoms, on safety of women journalists, exile journalism. There are too many things to mention, but yes, in my sort of day-to-day work, I do a lot of research and writing and join really interesting conversations like this one when I can. So yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Okay. Then we go into barely informed staff. So Ida, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't go into too much details about myself. Right now, I work as the production manager, of course, for Barely Informed, for the specific video of how Iran targets activists everywhere. Actually, I kind of came up with the concept idea for the video after stumbling upon a report which was published by the BVV, this is Bundesamt für Verfassungsschutz, actually, for constitution protection in Germany. I approached Stan with the idea, and then we made this project happen. Actually, it's really something I'm really proud of. And then I stayed on as the production manager. We are covering a lot of interesting projects. I'm originally from Iran. I would not call myself an expert on Iran in any way, but I have worked on topics which are related to Iran. Two of the things that I'm really proud of is, of course, this video that I worked on, how Iran targets activists everywhere. And then the other thing was about trans rights in Iran. Actually, for the Business Insider, which received a couple of accolades. I'm really proud of that. On the other hand, I also work as the science communication officer for the Center for Fundamental Rights at the Hertie School. But I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for joining our panel, and I really look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, it's funny that you don't call yourself an expert on Iran, but last year you worked on two pieces that both won awards on the topic of Iran. So yeah, I appreciate how humble you are on the topic.
Thank you.
So I think most people who are watching the live stream right now know me, but in case anyone is joining for the other people on the panel, my name is Stan. I'm an independent journalist. My family's French. I was born in the US. I'm currently based in Berlin, where I started Barely Informed, where we try to do kind of independent journalism in a way that speaks, that uses the language of younger audiences, and that tries to get away from traditional journalism formats, I guess, or tones, rather. And yeah, that's what we do. That's what we tried to do with the Iran video. That's what we do with the other videos that we do. Anyway, I will play, for anyone who hasn't seen it, the trailer of the video that we're going to be starting the conversation on today, and then we'll be back for the start of the panel.
Video.
Oh, Jesus. It wasn't that bad when I started.
In one particular case, Iran hired private investigators to gather information on Iranian-American journalist Masih Alinejad and even attempt to kidnap her. This is called transnational repression.
But the more I learn, the more frightened I'm becoming, actually.
I went to my room and I thought, okay, my PC was turned on, logged in. You don't need to be a sophisticated hacker to perform such a thing. You just need to be prepared for it. They wanted to make me afraid and show me that they can do things.
I was actually looking into things and researching, and I had so many tabs open also on the computer. Suddenly, out of the blue, like a window pops up.
I got a message that's, did you log into this account right now from Frankfurt? And I was like, no, I did not. And I don't know how they did it, because I have two-factor authentication. They shouldn't be able to come in without having access to my phone number.
That kind of freaked me out because the exact same thing happened to me just 2 days before we shot that interview.
Do you think they are doing enough to protect the Iranian activists?
Of course not.
I just had a heart attack. I was like, this is crazy, it's happening to me. I just held down the power button for everything to just shut down.
I don't think anyone feels safe.
And we're back. Okay, so we originally shot that video in late 2023, and since then a lot of things have happened. So during the shooting of the video, we started to have a number of, scary messages, hacking alerts, or messages saying, "Oh, this is your code to change your password that we didn't request," but like a lot more than usual. I got an alert that my Facebook was broken into, but thankfully I was able to stop that quickly enough that it didn't have an impact at the time. But I guess because it's been almost 2 years, it's been a year and a half. I guess we can start the panel with kind of an update for each of us on things that have happened to us since then. From my side, the new version of the video that went out on YouTube a few weeks ago, I already gave that update, but just for those who haven't seen it, essentially my Facebook got hacked and got completely taken over for a little while. My LinkedIn briefly belonged to a Chinese woman, supposed Chinese woman, who was scamming a bunch of people. And a bunch of other accounts, including accounts that I don't even know how anyone knew that I had accounts on those like really small niche platforms, started being attacked. And for some of those, I actually got a quick free cybersecurity training session from Ozzy on the panel as well, which was really nice. And that's basically it. I go into more detail in the video that's up on YouTube. But yeah, if maybe Ozzy, if you want to talk about anything that's happened either personally to you since the publishing of that video, or just an update on either German policy or this whole topic of how Iran targets activists everywhere, to use the title of the video, and if they've changed their methods in the last year and a half.
So, I mean, like, to starting from the bottom to the top again, like exactly what happened, what we were all seeing, Germany and like all the European forces and like all the Western governments sat down with the dictators together again. They're sitting on a new nuclear deal together, which means that all of us are thrown under the bus. And this is exactly what the Green Party was doing back then, not breaking all the diplomatic hands with Iran, and kind of like scapegoating behind all these, they have hostages from us, while not doing anything for Jamshid Sharmat, who allegedly passed away in the prison in Iran. But like it was told that he was like, so just context. So like, sorry, I need to like add context here. Jamshid Sharmat was one of the many hostages, which are labeled as dual national hostages, were people who had like more than like Iranian nationality. They were like German or American citizen or French citizen. There are a bunch of these people in prisons in Iran, which are basically like tourists who went to Iran, or people who were going to countries around Iran and then being taken kidnapped from these countries and then brought to Iran. And then within the judicial system of Iran says, does not accept that people have another nationality. So if you're Iranian, be it you were born in Iran or you're born from an Iranian father, then you're Iranian and you cannot be anything else. And then based on these laws, they don't really negotiate with any country, but of course they do. They had like been, Omid Namazi and many other people have been part of hostage exchange deals or prisoners exchange deals between the governments. But for example, Jamshid Sharmat was one of these people who was never dealt with. And he did have a political background, but it was always used by the German government that they're working their best, and exactly because of that, they cannot break all the diplomatic tools and routes with Iran. But they just left him alone, where Germany actually did free 3 of their hostages a few months before that, but they completely left Jamshid behind, and he passed away there, or was killed, or was hanged. We don't know. I mean, like, this is something that there are different stories going on there. Like, Islamic Republic at the beginning said that yes, we did hang him, and then a week after they took it back and said no, he just passed away in prison. Anyhow, it doesn't really matter to get that much deep into it, but exactly the same narrative that the German government had back there, that they wanted to keep this route and cannot really understand or accept the reality in which Islamic Republic does not exist, and there is another democratic forces there in charge, is something that is not really imaginable for Germany, because they're also happy to deal with what is there right now. They can control it much better, for some reason. for whatever it is. But that means that all the works of the civic society is left behind. And I think it's like from a certain perspective, I understand. I'm like, hey, you don't want to get involved, whatever. But then at the same time, you're nagging a lot about all the terrorist organizations that exist in the region. You give it names. You kind of like you go with all forces against Hamas or any other thing out there. But then you forget about this exactly main sponsor of all these organizations and all the issues that you have to say. Like it's always like this same shit is happening there. But like. So this was like the political part of what has changed there. There is a reformist in charge, or a reformist, like even like as a former reformist, I would not even dare to call him the reformist, like literally one-to-one part of the regime, but whatever. This is the new reality to call Pezeshkian reformist, but whatever people voted for him, or we think that they voted for him, this is like all like they follow the narrative of Islamic Republic. There was an election. People voted on a very small scale. He won the election, and allegedly he's doing good things of trying to bring senses into negotiations, trying to open doors, trying to get like bring more accountability. That's like the whole narrative that they're trying to rebuild in Islamic Republic because of all the pressure that was put on Islamic Republic. They could not really go any further with the harassment of the civic society that they were going in, and there were many big changes in the country. But I think we will talk about this a little bit further, and I just stop at this point on this topic. But going to the pressure on the activists and stuff that are going on, I think like I find it quite interesting because like I'm actually not really doing political work that much. Like if I compare my calendar this year with last year, I'm basically doing nothing. If I want to just like look at all the work that I was putting back into it last year. But I find it very interesting because like also different documentaries I was part of it because it was just in different places and there were people with cameras trying to record a movement and archive it. And now those films are coming out, and it's super interesting that whenever we're getting closer to a premiere of something or when some article is coming out, then like suddenly I have a surge of phishing attacks on my account again. And this is like something that I find super ridiculous because like never ever in this whole time I fell for any of this. And they never changed their pattern at all. So it's like just like a way of communication of if we want to annoy you, we can annoy you. And that's the whole thing. And to be honest, like I'm never worried of these because I'm sure I'm not going to fall for them, and even if I fall for them, I have like many backdoors behind it. I'm not really worried of these. I do see other people freaking out and panicking when stuff happens, so like I understand the thing, but like I learned at some point that I need to like do an education, just not really fall into this and prepare myself for it. But it does go on your nerve. It does go on your nerve. Like I had this moment where actually I got for the first time an email from Google saying that government-funded hackers are trying to break into your account. And it was like it says like it's I never had it in the past 2 years, and like despite all the tries, despite all this case that we followed, I never got this from Google. And this was like at some point it got so much that Google was like, hey, just so you know, like this is like something that we see. And the thing is, like they can't break into my devices, they cannot find anything, and it's also they're not interested in what they find, because if they want to have something, they can do it. And this is like something that we need to accept, that whatever we have in the digital realm exists out there. There is no way you can like secure it, whatever. It's about just basically having a understanding that you need to have things offline if it's important for you, or you need to not have them anywhere other than here. And whatever that is else that is out there can be put out. And if they were interested in figuring it out, they will find a way for it. So everything else is just a fucking mind game to be like, oh, we can take it from you. Oh, we can. And like, unfortunately, in the case with me, I have nothing to be worried about, you know, like anything that they are like, all the theories that they can talk about, like I can share those information on my own Insta as well. So it's like, I don't have any shame about anything that I have. So it's like, whatever, like come take it. But this is like one of those things that I see quite often happening to many people, or like I think I have at least 4 phone calls a day from these random bots that are like trying to just, make me push some button on my phone. And this is something that some days gets less, some days get more. And I think like I understand technology super well. I think I don't have an issue with this, but I can imagine how this is annoying for people who are not really have this affinity into getting into technological stuff. And I can imagine how that goes on other people's nerves. And that's why I'm also like having like a little bit like making videos about explaining how these things work and how to like organize yourself in a way that you don't fall for these things so often.
I have a very
Yeah.
quick follow-up on the on something that you brought up in the documentary. I remember the police telling you that you needed to change your door. So just a yes or no question. Did you change your door? Did you pay the 3,000 euros?
Well, I think for the ones who are interested in this question, they can try again to come in and see if they get in.
Fair enough.
Good
Fair
one.
enough.
Yes. But I'm
Okay.
still in the same flat. Like this is something
Yeah.
they know. This is the
Okay.
background.
Ida, what's new with you? What's been happening on your side?
Actually, I want to just speak to a few points that was raised. So Ozzy, I want to say super sorry because I think the day actually you received that notification from Google that is a state-sponsored hackers are trying to break into your account was one day before the panel which was held at the Hertie School. We showed the documentary. So if that maybe that explains the coincidence in a little way, they wanted to maybe send a signal. If it's any consolation, I was just like I brought it up during the panel and I said, okay, one of the subjects of our documentary, Ozzy, was actually targeted and received these notifications from Google. I completely understand. What happened to me is like in comparison, it's something very, very small, and it's so insignificant. I don't think it merits a mention, but I received so many notifications about people trying to break into my Microsoft account. Actually, at one point, I was like, it's just so much easier for me to close down the account altogether, because I was getting sick and tired of receiving this email that, oh, somebody, have you received this notification? Do you want to change your password? Here's a new code. And I was like, okay, I'm really sick and tired of that. Let me close down my account altogether. And it was funny because it gives you like a 3 months window where you can actually decide to come back. And then within that 3 months, also people were trying to break in, and this was unbelievable. However, I want to highlight one point, and maybe this is something that we can come back to later. When we were holding the panel we screened the documentary there, and we of course had a panel discussion afterwards. One of the audience members, who is also a faculty at the Hertie School, Dr. Hassel, Dr. Anke Hassel, she said something very interesting to me afterwards. She said, how do you know which of these attempts come from governments and which of them are random hackers? And this was a very good point. It's a very, very, very good point. But as also Ozzy mentioned, it's like, it's the fear, it's the paranoia, it's like not knowing like where this comes from actually. And then because of that fear and paranoia, we change our behaviors. A lot of activists decide to stop their activism because it becomes too much, or other behavioral patterns also that changes. So I won't get into that a lot at this point. Maybe at one point when we have questions, we can discuss it more. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say from my side. Yeah.
So Arsu, I don't know if you've had any interactions with Iran specifically, but I believe you do have quite a personal experience with authoritarianism. So I was wondering if you could give us a quick background on your experience when you still live in Azerbaijan, what led you to leave, and if you've had to deal with transnational repression since you've left.
Thank you. I don't think any of the attacks that I faced or the harassment that I faced was from Iran, at least from what I was able to research and document and study. But yes, I had plenty of experience dealing with the trolls that were sponsored by the government of Azerbaijan. I guess I'll just quickly go to the beginning of how this all started. I lived in Baku and worked in Baku, and in I mean, in some for some time I was away. I was away for my studies, and then I came back and started working in the city. I was working for an international organization, doing work on human rights work, election observation, democracy, building more like working with movements and political parties and whatnot. And then I moved back to Istanbul. I moved back to Istanbul, but I continued traveling back and forth. At that point, I was involved in some conflict transformation work as well because it was a topic I was really interested in, even before I kind of like got into journalism. And it was actually I left for personal reasons. There was no pressure, no anything. I left for personal reasons, and this is why I was able to go back to the country so often for projects, for research, to visit my family, remaining family in Baku at that time. But it was really it was I was coming back from a dialogue retreat that the NGO I worked at the time was organizing in Georgia, and it was for the first time we brought together journalists from Armenia and Azerbaijan. Before, we used to work with students, younger people, and at some point in time, we decided that we need to expand this dialogue format and bring like professionals and academics and journalists, because media plays a really important role in shaping the narrative between these two countries and about the relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So anyway, long story short, we had a really interesting dialogue program hosting journalists from Armenia and Azerbaijan. And I came back really inspired, thinking, well, there's a lot of hope in changing the way journalists, both in Armenia and Azerbaijan, report about both countries, because for a really long time, there was this like language of hate and aggression and victimization and all kinds of things that two countries face when they're at war or have been at war for a long time, or the conflict was never really resolved but remained frozen, and so on and so forth. And right around then, I was offered an opportunity to write for a Turkish Armenian newspaper based out of Istanbul called Agos. And I thought it was really timely. I just came back from facilitating a dialogue between journalists from Armenia and Azerbaijan, and here I was given an opportunity to write in a joint paper, Turkish and Armenian. I would be writing in Turkish, and I would have a column, and so on and so forth. And I did take this opportunity on, except I didn't really think how big of a consequence it is going to have, not just on my career as a journalist, but on my safety, on my work in general. A year and a half into the work, I started getting a lot of heat from pro-government media outlets, from random people I didn't know. That's when I got my first death threat as well. And of all places, I got it on Facebook. It landed in my inbox. So it was kind of my 101 introduction to online harassment and sort of digital repression and persecution. And at that point, it was very clear to me that I couldn't go back to Azerbaijan because I was so openly and publicly shamed for what I've done. I was this traitor in the eyes of the regime, who, an Azerbaijani who sold her soul and started working for Turkish Armenian paper, etc., etc. But little did I know that this experience will also teach me a lot of interesting things about safety of journalists online, safety of women journalists online. Will teach me so much a bit about how platforms are complicit in a lot of what's going on in countries like Azerbaijan, how big of a community there is actually out there, not just among journalists, but also among activists who do deal with these kind of instances of hate and harassment and repression, and eventually also lead me to this whole topic of digital transnational repression, authoritarian technology, and digital transnational repression. So I started researching a little bit more on the technological side of authoritarianism in Azerbaijan and where it was coming from, where the technology was coming from. And it was just really a fascinating world. Just seeing the numbers, how much money is being spent on buying this like very sophisticated surveillance programs, how they're getting their, how the government was training its minions on the use of this surveillance and how they were using it, how they were using these tools to come after civil society, not just in the country, but also by that point, the exiled community of Azerbaijanis. Because Azerbaijan, although was not democratic, the exiled community from Azerbaijan really started to grow over the last 20 years. And I think in the last 10 years has really increased in numbers due to the persecution and the crackdown that we've been documenting in the country. I kind of went off, but I hope that got the gist of the questions that you asked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I it's really interesting, the idea of you were pointing out how an Azerbaijani writer writing for a Turkish-Armenian platform, considering like the fraught history between all three of those countries, and it's sad and unfortunate that that is something that is so immediately controversial and frowned upon. Also, so you were mentioning a topic that I wanted to get to, which is the difference between some of the physical transnational repression that we mention in the documentary, but how much easier it is to do it digitally, because the tools for digital authoritarianism within the country are the same as the tools for outside the country. Whereas if you have a police state within your borders, it's much more expensive to deploy resources abroad. One of the most powerful lines, I think, in the documentary is one from Ozzy that I ended the trailer on, which is, I don't think anyone feels safe. And I'd already mentioned the chilling effect of not knowing if an attack is coming from the people trying to get to you, or if it's just like a random, normal, just regular result of having a presence online. Yeah, I was wondering if Ozzy, if you could comment a little bit more on that, and also talk about, I was noticing that I haven't heard much from the Women Life Freedom movement this year or in recent months, and I was wondering if it's still going, like what's the state of the movement right now, and if my impression that it seems to have calmed down quite a bit is true. Why is that? What led to it kind of losing steam?
I think the last question is much more important. Everything else is sideline. So I think that this is something I want to talk about more. The last part of your question, not the last question. I think the most important thing to not forget is that this movement is now in prison. Like, after a long while of crackdown, all the people that are organizing either leave the country and they're trying to restructure themselves, or they're in prison. So we need to wait another 3 to 5 years till they come out and they start to reorganize themselves. This is like the reality. And but there are big changes that we don't see because we are not in Iran. And that is the streets. That is seeing these pictures of a city that I was born and raised in, and I cannot imagine it. Like, the amount of women without headscarf. Like, this is, people used to go to Turkey to have this level of freedom. And they don't need to do that anymore, despite the, and don't get me wrong, there are still crackdowns, there is still like using facial recognition I mean, they changed the whole Strafe system, they changed this whole penal system from I'm gonna arrest you on the streets and just like bring you in this Wazara, in this place in Tehran at least, or in another city, like there were always this one center that they would bring women without headscarves to just like put them into under lots of stress and like maybe even like keep them for 2 to 3 days and then send them home and like cause all these issues. They completely went away from this and now are using facial recognition systems to figure out who is not wearing headscarf while driving. And then that's the very easier version of like controlling the society, of going on a financial war with the people on the streets and your population basically. And because of this, and another matter on top of that is that you cannot hold the revolution for so long. Like you have a tipping point, and that's a moment where it either achieves what it needs or it needs to settle down for the next best thing. And we are in the next best thing phase right now, from what I'm seeing. And it's exactly the same thing that happened outside of Iran happened also inside of Iran. Of seeing all the people who put all their resources in the middle of it, like, fuck about my individual, like I don't care about my individuality. Let's figure something out together. At some point when the resources end, you need to go in the survival mode of yourself and take care of yourself. And we are again back in this situation, but it does not mean that nothing is happening in the background. All these channels and networks are restructuring themselves. About many, I cannot say much because about many, I don't know much. And about what I know, they don't want to publicly talk about it right now, but stuff is still going in the background. And I think we are in this transitional phase of trying to find out how we go any further from this. And I think it's also like important to know each movement or each revolution, regardless if it comes to the main goal that it has or not, is that where did it land at the end? And I think the thing that my generation learned was that we need to trust the diplomatic or democracy tools that exist under Islamic Republic to trust the voting system, to trust and try to bring the reformists in charge and blah, blah, like go into this transition of changing the system from within and trusting this process and coming to the point that we cannot trust this process anymore. And being like, okay, we're done with this whole phase was the whole reason why the Woman Life Freedom movement started. And that was a moment where people were like, okay, we are not listening to the diplomatic tools that you're just giving us as like it does not exist. It's just like bullshit that you're just like pretending that it exists. We're going to move on from this and look at all the other resistances that exist in all around Iran. Like we're talking about this political geography of Iran, like looking what Kurds are doing, looking what Baluchis are doing. And there is much more connection now within Iran, within different communities, within different nationalities, within different, whatever you want to call them. And I think this was a big outcome. And this is where the revolution is at right now, or like if we can call it a revolution. And another thing, and like maybe like the biggest income for the diaspora was that you cannot find any solution with the damn it, I have not talked about this in English for such a long time, I forgot about the terms. You can never find solution or compromise with the royalists. Like it will not like it's also like from beginning it was clear that it's not going to work out, but like you cannot build a collective being of sharing the power collectively while you have royalists, because it does not get along. It's just like, and there is like it can in your fantasy try to find a solution of standing all together against an enemy, but then at some point someone within you becomes also the enemy, and you cannot have like all this togetherness. And this whole diaspora coming together fell apart exactly because of the existence of the royalists in the core communication and in the core, like this whole Reza Pahlavi, who still calls himself king or doesn't care about it. They did not understand that they are still living in their Delulu lands of they are something. And not really like they're really disconnected. They're really disconnected with the reality out there. And for sure, there are many believers in what they are offering in back home as well, and also in prisons. There are people like resisting to bring the former kingdom back to Iran, but it's like way out of proportion of their power. And they try to like kind of be the decision maker and the people who make the cut, and that was also one of the outcomes for the diaspora, to understand that next time when we're organizing ourselves, we cannot bring them to the table, but we need to maybe even be more exclusive and just not really be like every community together, all together. Maybe like this was exactly like the last nail in this in Farsi say Michal Kharitavut. Like it was what's you're muted.
You're muted, Ida, yeah.
Coffin. The last nail in the coffin.
Last nail in the coffin of like this will not work out from here. So the people within Iran need to find a solution to organize themselves. And we're waiting for the next wave. For the people from within to organize themselves, and when the diaspora starts standing up in the support, then the community in Iran should say, shut the fuck up outside, you had your time. So this is where we are.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah.
Protest movements are frustrating to deal with often because large groups of people often want to have these simple narratives. So it's interesting that you point out the problem with the royalists, and that's often what people feel is like, for example, this is a protest against the current system in Iran, the Islamic Republic. And if you're against that, then therefore you must be a royalist, or you must be this, or you must be that. And there's these like people want it to be like one group against another group, and they hate it when there's like more complexities to that. It's the same with the pro-Palestine movement. The pro-Israeli side loves to paint all of the pro-Palestine movement as pro-Hamas. And even within the pro-Palestine movement, there are people who want to be supportive of Hamas, and as soon as they hear another pro-Palestine person criticize Hamas, it's like, oh my God, you're not part of our movement and whatever. And it's like really hard to get these dynamics to work in a productive way very often. Very often these movements kind of destroy themselves from the inside.
I must also like, sorry, I just add something on top of that. I must say, like, this was also like something that came in for our community very often, because I don't know, like, we mobilize people in Brussels from all over Europe to go to the Europe Parliament to put IRGC on the terror list of Europe. This is Islamic Republic Guard Corps. They are the grandparents of Hamas and all these other movements. And then telling us that we are pro-Hamas, it's like so fucking ridiculous. It's like, how dare you? We were telling all your fucking governments to put this, to label this organization as a terror organization, and you refrained from it. You said legally we cannot do it. And then like scapegoating behind this whole, no, but you are like anti-Semitic. It's like, you are the anti-Semitic. We told you to put this as an organization, like to see this as a terror organization, but you didn't want to do it. You felt like this is too complicated. Sorry, I just had to drop this.
No, absolutely. Arsu, I'm realizing that because we started a bit late, we're actually getting to the almost 1 hour. Do you have a little bit of a margin of error that we can run past?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'm really enjoying this conversation.
Okay, so. Great. Me too. I wanted to touch upon the fact that you are. I've seen it described as in exile. I don't know if you describe it that way yourself.
I am in exile.
Okay.
Self-imposed exile.
But you are in self-imposed exile from authoritarianism in Azerbaijan, but living in Turkey, which has its own very, dark record or troubling record, especially when it comes to journalism. Back when I was still studying journalism, I did my master's on risk management, and at the time for a risk management for media companies, and at the time Turkey was the world leader in the number of journalists in prison. I don't know if that's still the case right now. I know that right now the number of journalists dead is unfortunately Gaza. But can you explain like that dynamic and how you're able to operate as a journalist, especially as a journalist who is also critical of the government of Turkey while living there?
That is a great question, and a question I get asked quite often, especially in more recent years. Every time I'm traveling at a conference, when people learn where I'm based, they're like, "Oh, and do you feel safe?" I'm like, "How do I answer this question? Like, how?" Yeah. Anyway, um, so I came to Turkey to study first. I was an undergraduate student at a university in Ankara. And it was right around then when the ruling party came to power. And I was among countless other university students who went to watch this party bus with its procession with EU flags waving and hanging everywhere. And there was this hope, there was this idea that Turkey is on the brink of change and that EU accession is around the corner and that things will be very different for this country. So, as a student of international relations, you would think that this is like the most interesting time to be in this country, and the most interesting thing to me is now in retrospect, compare all the milestones. I was here when the ruling party came to power. I moved back to Istanbul, and a couple of years later, I witnessed the Gezi Park protests. I covered the Gezi Park protests, and I stayed on watching how things started to shift, how Turkey became the country with the highest number of journalists behind bars, how Turkey got further and further, the government got further and further away from any potential EU accession conversation. I mean, just recently there was a decision to pause the accession talks as if, there was any movement in those conversations to begin with up until now. But as a journalist, actually, I think it has given me some insight into how things have shifted and what actors played a role in these shifts. It helps you to understand the history because not only you've been here, but also because you have a community of friends here at this point, community of journalists, community of civil society and experts who are obviously far better versed on the politics because I've lived here for 20 years now, give or take, and I still don't fully understand all the nuances. There's so many little or big things from the history or from conversations that I actually ask for explanations. Because no matter how long you've lived here, you're still a foreigner. And no matter how well you speak the local language, it's still a foreign language to you. Whether or how it is to be here. For many years, I tried not to write about Turkey. I mean, whenever like big things were happening, I would write for Global Voices sometimes, as just someone who was based here. But I always thought there were enough foreign correspondents based here who lived here long enough, who knew the politics, and who could write about Turkey. But when I started writing and started my work as a regional editor at Global Voices, it required me to write on Turkey and cover Turkey more actively. And so far, I personally haven't had to deal with the challenging environment that is here, but I have colleagues who have had to experience this. I mean, even the most recent protest, right, that started on March 19th, going there, knowing that your press card makes no difference to a police officer. Knowing that if you try having a conversation with riot police, it's not going to make a difference. You still, take on that it's, even thinking of it as a risk just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'm there to observe, I'm there to try to talk to people if I can, and I'm there to then write about what happened. But then I've seen so many local Turkish journalists get the wrath of the riot police. Many were arrested and quickly sentenced. Foreign correspondents. I mean, Mark Lowen was here from the BBC, and he used to live here, and that's how we met. We met during the Gezi protests when he was based here, and then just hearing his story and how he was deported, and it just. I think the idea is to make you feel afraid, make you weigh everything you say, make you consider how many or how deep you're willing to go into the story, how far you're willing to investigate. And I am really, I'm just in awe by the courage of the Turkish journalists. I mean, I see them as, this beacon because they keep writing and they keep investigating and they keep starting these new initiatives, even if they're being laid off from their jobs because of their journalism. They still come up with ideas. I mean, they still face trials. They still go to court, and they potentially face jail time. I mean, I think you can never be 100% safe here. And when I'm asked whether I'm safe here and what it's like to live here, to me it's a question that, I mean, I don't take lightly, but also there's really not one way to answer it. Like we do what we can as journalists, whether we're foreign correspondents, whether we're local journalists, and you have to make sure that you have signed a contract with a lawyer.
Mhm.
That's for sure. You have to make sure that you have a network of journalists that you can write to immediately if something happens, and then hope for the best, because you can't really do anything more than this if you really want to stick to journalism. So
So I have a question for, I guess it would be for all three of you, but I'll address it to Ida so she can take the floor. But one thing that I was wondering about, and Arsu kind of mentioned this a little bit at the start of her first answer, which was about trolls, although you mentioned trolls that were sponsored by the government. And I'm thinking about trolls that are more like just supporters of the government that aren't really getting marching orders, because we talk a lot in the documentary, we talk about the direct employees of the RGC, of Charming Kitten, or the direct employees of whatever government is doing these kinds of activities. But then there's just an army of just like the fans of that government, the fans of that party, the fans of that politician, who will kind of pro bono, of their own volition, kind of go after the critics of that party. And I was wondering if, like, could those be talked about as kind of an arm, an informal arm of transnational repression? Is that have other people made that observation? Like, how do they fit in this equation, basically?
I think actually probably Arzu is better situated to answer that question. But like when I was researching for the video that we made on how Iran targets activists everywhere, I was looking at an example of, if I'm not wrong, a Turkish newspaper or publication that was closed down in the Netherlands, actually, because their editor-in-chief and also the people who worked at the newspaper were being harassed by Turkish citizens inside the Netherlands. I don't know if you're familiar with this case, but it was a very, very interesting case, actually. So within that, remember a specific study and paper, this was also referred to as transnational repression, because whether we would like it or not, and we don't know how these citizens are organizing themselves, of course, it is still considered as repression targeting diaspora by members of diaspora within the specific country, which is not the home country. So in my perspective, and I found that study really interesting, and I was like, I agree. with that assessment that, yeah, you may not receive the marching orders, but sometimes the alliances are actually so strong and sometimes so difficult to say who receives the order and who not. And like, especially in the case of Turkey, it is very interesting for me. If somebody can speak about the case of Turkey, that is that Erdogan has a big support base in other countries which are not Turkey. Germany is a good example of that. Netherlands, another example of that, actually. So, and I don't think that it's necessary to send a group email or a group chat message to all of them and say, now, let's do this, let's start with this person. The alliances and allegiances are very, very clear. And then, so one thing too many, and then they start acting on their best or worst instinct, let's say. So yeah, interesting. It's a very good question. And yeah, if you also feel like you want to say something to that, please feel free.
I like the cat showing up.
Yeah, the cat has something to say about that, I think.
Hi.
Very cute. I mean, I can jump in really quick on Azerbaijan, or Ozzy, do you wanna go? Okay, so in the case of Azerbaijan, this evolution of trolls has been quite interesting to watch because I only started looking into who these people were and whether they were actually people after 2014. So whether there was anything before that, I do not know. But I do think that based on the research that I've done, this idea of trolling as distorting content, as harassing the individual who's sharing the content, as causing reputational damage to the person or the news outlet or the journalist or rights defender, whatever, posting content online really came out after the crackdown in 2013 in Azerbaijan. And when I was looking into them, I spotted real profiles. I spotted profiles that belonged to people who worked for various government institutions. I spotted profiles of members of youth, government-aligned youth movements. I spotted profiles of members of youth branch of the ruling party, as well as the members of the ruling party of Azerbaijan, and teachers sometimes, just like really random people. But when I look at the trolls now, they're all inauthentic accounts. If you go on Facebook and you click on a post by an independent media outlet that has shared any story, but, critical of the government is where they come really in masses. And you just hover with your mouse and you see that they're all pages. They're not even accounts. And they usually have a few followers, a few friends, sorry. And the pictures, I mean, at some point I dug really deep because I was doing a project and I cross-referenced, I reverse image search the profile pictures, and I found that so many of them were actually fake, that they were taken off the internet. So in the case of Azerbaijan, we've seen an evolution from where you had actual people employed or doing it not because they were appreciating the government or like the government, but because they were afraid that they're going to lose their jobs. Because that's usually the fear mechanism that works in the case of Azerbaijan. This is what they do during elections as well. They bus people to the polling stations. And usually when you start talking to those people, they're the teachers, they are factory employees, they are employees at various ministries and state institutions. And so this is how they do it. And they are told that if you don't go and vote for the candidate, you will be fired or you will face repercussions, and that's how it's done. And I think in the beginning, kind of this the trolling, that's how it worked, until they got a little bit more sophisticated and they learned about the inauthentic accounts and they started using bot accounts too, because I don't think it's humanly possible to manage so many accounts unless it's automated. But yeah, that's the evolution of trolling in Azerbaijan.
Yeah, I just quickly want to bounce off of that, but because there's actually a demonstration that anyone can do to prove how easy it is to do this, and it's not going to put anyone at risk, but it's to show just how many bots are automatically engaging with people. If you go to Twitter, I think mostly Twitter will be the one where this would work the most, but any of the Twitter clones that are out there, and post something about how you lost access to an account of yours or something about, some technical issues, you will immediately get 2 or 3 bots in your replies that are just scouring Twitter to look for people who have tech issues, and you'll get 2 or 3 bots that are going to tell you contact this person to help recovering your account and stuff like that. So that is in the case of like people, I guess either scams or people trying to sell their tech support services. I think it's more likely that they're scams, but I'm sure that there's very similar things of government sponsored bots looking for criticism of the governments and just like automatically engaging and flooding those comments without even a human in the loop in a lot of cases.
Oh, they have a list. I think it was back in 2018 during the presidential election in Azerbaijan. Just a quick example, or maybe it was in another election. I can't remember. But we had a leaked document from one of those trolls who was a human. Because one of the colleagues had access to this person, and he sent us a picture of this A4 paper that had all the names of opposition independent media, the URLs to their Facebook pages, and all of the names of journalists that they were told to watch that day, and political activists.
Wow.
And the order was to basically flood whatever they were posting, and that's exactly what they did in a very orchestrated and organized manner. So they don't even search, they have a list, and they still do, because again, like when I go online and I'm reading updates from one of the outlets, I usually go to the comments and I'm like, oh yeah, still nothing has changed, and the platforms, as complicit as they are, do very little to remove those accounts.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other topic that we won't even have time. Maybe we can save that for a future conversation.
Yeah.
Ida, do you wanna take the next one? Or?
Yeah, I would like to jump in quickly.
Sure.
Because I know that Arzu, last, if I'm not wrong, last month you attended the International Journalism Festival, and you talked about the journalism in exile, which is very interesting. Unfortunately, I haven't seen the panel yet, but I just wanted to quickly touch upon one thing that you probably covered. Actually, is about women journalists in particular. So because female journalists, I think, are targeted also on a different level and in different ways. And this is something that researchers like Marcus Mikkelsen have also touched upon. The female journalists or female activists are all targeted differently. I know it might be a very difficult topic also to talk about. So if you would like to maybe talk about that a little bit, and if you have any specific experiences that you have also heard maybe from other people. And this I also would direct to also Ozzy as well. I mean, like in your experience and with your identity, actually, are you also being targeted differently? Or have you seen things differently as well? Or have you heard of female activists who are being targeted in different ways? And how are the measures different for them when it comes to digital authoritarianism or transnational repression? Yeah.
I think Arzu should answer first.
Yeah. This is my time to advertise. Being recorded, so okay.
He's back.
Okay, I'm back, but I sorry about that. I don't even know if we're still streaming.
Okay.
We either lost the stream. I don't know if the same link is still working. Maybe some commenters can tell us once they've rejoined. I think it probably created a new link. Let me just quickly check on the technical aspect of things.
I'm really glad that you are recording this.
Yeah, I am recording this as well. Yeah, so it's all good. I'm actually recording in 2 different spots, so it's all good.
Okay.
But the live stream, I'm pretty sure it just crashed. Are we still here? Or rather, are we back? Let me see if that seems to be working. It looks like it created a new live stream. Let me just check on that. It's they got us. It's the government of Iran.
Thank God.
Advanced persistent threat.
Okay, it seems like we're back. Okay. Good. So I'm sorry, I don't know exactly where we cut off. I don't know. I hope you can recover that train of thought from before I disappeared from the conversation.
Maybe it was just a good sign for me to like keep it short. So yes, I mentioned this research by Citizen Lab that I took part in, but I think that basically the bottom line is yes, women experience harassment in very different ways because men don't get rape threats or they don't get very well defined rape threats or how they imagine to harass the woman or how the things that they imagine doing to their children and etc. etc. I think that makes it I think that's the biggest difference when it comes to the language and the sexuality of the harassment that is being targeted at a woman journalist. And it's not only for exiled journalists. It could be the same language and the same type of harassment in the country towards an independent journalist. We've seen this happen in other instances as well. So it can be quite intimidating. My personal experience with the harassment was I wanted to disappear offline from all the social media platforms, and I wanted to like hide somewhere because it was so much and everywhere, and I really thought there is no way out of this place. But eventually, I realized the person or the people who need to disappear are them, not me, and that I have a voice, and that I'm going to use them as my lab rats to write about trolling, to write about harassment, to write about this, digital authoritarianism and information controls in Azerbaijan, which are all the things I learned over the years after I experienced harassment. So that's my take on this.
Yeah, and I'll just take a page from the Turkish government and blame the technical issues on this cat.
Oh yes.
For anyone who gets the joke.
Good one.
Okay, but I think that the question was really interesting to ask to Ozzy for obvious reasons because of a very different experience, I guess, online.
Yeah, I mean, I must say, like this whole topic of there's also like one question from before that I want to like we need to find a solution to get to there, so I answered that because I find it so interesting. It's like more on technical aspects, but I think like my living experience as the content creator outside of the scope of all these like let's say political, because like what is not political these days, but outside of this, because like I had like a character as a comedian out there, or just like really something like in the middle of all this, was that still hatred and or hate comment or like actually like dealing with Smurfs accounts that are just trolling you out there has been there, and like also the sort of like hate speech that you have to deal with in the comment section always existed out there, but it got much more specific. And also I think one thing that I got more and more what became more and more visible is also one part that no one really like talks about it that much, which is like internalized misogyny in every structure that exists out there. And this like the amount of work that you need to do to even be taken serious is like something that is quite unique in its way. And I must say, in like when you talk about bots, like I mean, this was like a lovely topic for Elon Musk the whole time when he was trying to make this deal for Twitter of like, oh, there are so many bots there, and now like, what is remaining of the Twitter? Like it's just bots. Like I mean, I have had a very specific algorithm. It's just like if you don't know me and you see my feed, which I don't use Twitter anymore, but if you go there, you just think I'm a redneck from Texas, and it's like the cisest white man behind this and who hates all the immigrants out there. It's like, you know, like this whole there was a change in the whole infrastructure of the social media. So like what we're also talking about like every social media that exists out there is like the ghost of what it was before 2 years ago. Like you can also see it on Instagram. When we were dealing with the whole woman life freedom movement, it did not happen so much that we would be sidelined or that we would like be kind of like pushed down a little bit. But nowadays, like after this whole pro-Palestine movement, the getting shadow banned became like a really serious thing, and everyone know it. Like we just like have like it was not like this before. Like you could see that maybe you are having fewer views and not like going from 2000 to 200. So these are all the things that works a little bit with your head. And then amongst this, then you have like all this internalized misogyny of people not taking you that serious. And then this also plays something with you internally that you start taking yourself also less serious. And so this is some part of it. And also like I know it from many trans siblings that for them for me it has never been a big thing to talk out there. I'll just put my face out there and say I don't care about it that much. I see this as part of the struggle. I see this as part of the resistance. But for many, I see why they would not do content creation, which is also something I want to like I ask often people when they are like always asking about like in Farsi speaking community, it happens often that like, oh, why is everything trans nowadays, or why is everything like LGBT and blah. I'm like, how many trans content creators do you know that they are making content every day? Like how many do you know?
Yeah, and I
Like-
have to say, you say Farsi speaking community, but like that's not just Farsi speaking community
Yeah,
where they say that.
Yeah, but like it's still like I wanted to just blame my community. I didn't want to blame other communities.
Fair.
I must also say like my bubble is also like I know so many trans people now that it's just like half of my feed is always like trans content creators. So like if I wanted to talk about this from different aspects, I had so much more other answers. But when it comes to my community, I barely know any. I barely know any, and I'm very well connected. But I barely know any other than sex workers. The rest of them, no idea. And this is like something that I need to bring it up so often because I saw always myself also as some sort of warrior that like I don't care about this, but I had like one video that this one really goes under my skin. I made it like it was supposed to be an 8-minute video, but I made a 35 minutes video about explaining how to make your messaging apps secure. So I was going through Signal, WhatsApp, and Telegram. What are like really going one-to-one, doing translation to Farsi as well. And then like I'm actually on this thing, and I'm wearing another top, and I'm not noticing how I'm recording myself. And then at some point halfway through the video, I noticed that it feels like I'm naked. So I go back a little bit, and I'm like, hey guys, just for your information, I'm wearing something underneath of this. I'm just like very a little bit too much in the camera. And then I posted this as a teaser on Instagram that, hey, there is a bigger video on YouTube, go watch it there. And this video went viral, like it went like above millions views. And the death threats that I got under this video was crazy. And it was not like at this point, most of it had nothing to do with Islamic Republic. It was just like the internalized misogyny and internalized Islamic Republic of all these people who are actually just there. And like, it was quite unlucky for everyone who just saw this piece and felt like they want to give out this hatred. Because I'm like, bro, I'm just giving you the toolkit of how to fight someone that is oppressing you. And exactly in this moment, you're like, what the fuck is this shit? And And then like at the moment, I just really like when I answered all the comments and I'm like, yeah, fuck you, or like just really going through like I don't have really filters on this. But then afterwards, I really noticed that it punched me so much that I didn't make any content for a year. Like I stopped the whole series. And these are the stuff that happens to you that you start also questioning yourself that like, do people care about me? Am I relevant? And this is like from a and this is a tool that then the government can also use very well when they know that this is like the time where misogyny and patriarchy come hand in hand, and it's like, okay, perfect toolkit to kick people. And the good way is to have therapy to remind yourself that hey, this is part of the resistance as well. But I want to come back to like, is it okay if I jump a topic and go to something else shortly?
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about the technical aspect. And that is, that was like maybe last 2 episodes that I did not make, but I still want to make them. One thing that I, like when we talked about together, Stan, that when your account was hacked, and I have it very often with other people as well, you getting hacked and your assets, your data is not important at all. Is you not being capable, like you getting into this mindset of shit, I don't have time to make my content, I need to get my account back, and like losing all the energy of getting your account back is part of the issue. And many of us, and I know it from like literally many of us, especially like my generation who was raised with like the first generation who started using computers and everything, we still did not really learn how to use it cleanly. So like very basic thing that I want to talk about, and I hope that whoever is watching this does this at some point soon. You're worried that your account's gonna get hacked. There is 3 ways for getting your accounts hacked. They need to have your username, and then they need to reach your password. So your username is probably somewhere. It's not so hard to find it. I can figure it out within 2 minutes.
Especially if it's accounts like Instagram, Twitter, etc., where their username is public, so you can't even do anything special with it.
Yes, so like it's less than 2 minutes for finding it out, and let's say I'm very slow in finding it out, so less than 2 minutes. Then it's your password. The easiest way is that forget my password and then bringing it to your Gmail, which for that they need to also find a solution to get your password onto your Gmail. So a most secure way of like not getting into this whole shit show of someone guessed my security question or something is to have a 2-factor authentication. An SMS text message is not 2-factor authentication. This is like, I think it's always offered, but let me give you a very simple solution. If you're living under dictatorship, which is the whole world right now, all governments, they have access to your SIM cards. So for a single second, they can turn your SIM card off and have a SIM card for themselves. So they give it, and given that the service that they're working with, let's say we're working with Signal that we trust it. Other than Meta and stuff, they don't even need to go through this process. But if they're working with an open source whatsoever that is secure as fuck, and we know they're like the best word, like Jesus and Muhammad and everyone else are sitting together, these are like the most secure thing. They can still be like, hey, Muhammad, I need this text message. And they're like, sure, buddy, is it you? I send it to your SIM card. The government can turn your SIM card off for half a second and grab this text message and turn your SIM card on again. You would never get this message. They have your code and they can get it. And this is also very simple for other solutions. Like this is like a very simple way of getting your password. And there are some sort of stuff that people can do to get there. It's not the easiest, but if you're a hacker, you know these routines. So, and as for a normal user, this is something that you can get involved in, that you can like fall for one of these traps. The most easy solution for this is one of these keys. These are security keys. And for whoever is watching this, I'm not using this myself, like not exactly this one, or maybe I am using exactly the same brand. We don't know, you never know. It's one of these keys. You get these, this is a 2-factor authentication. So you log in, you put your password, it says, where is this key? Inside of this, there is an encryption key. When you attach this to your device, some of them work with just the encryption inside, some also have a fingerprint. And without this, the hacker can never get into your account. And you can connect this to literally all your accounts, your iCloud, your Google, whatever it is. So someone tries to hack you, without this, they cannot get in. And this way, you bring the price for a hacker or for a government so high to hack you that the chances of getting assassination is higher than getting this. Because they like it costs the same amount, you know, like it costs the government same amount to pay someone to get this, you know. It's like you just make yourself a high target, and none of us is high target. Like none of us is that high on the level. And you might be like, okay, what if I lose this? You get two of these, and you attach both of these to all your accounts, and one of them is in a safe space. Where is the safe space? You need to search for that. But you have always one with you. And this way, you're never going to get hacked. Never going to get hacked. Your password, like write your passwords on your Instagram. They have it, whatever. They need this. There is no way to turn this off other than it's you. And this way, you can just stop so many problems in your life.
Yeah.
And it takes few minutes. And it's super important to buy them. Like Google has some, Yubico has some. There are a bunch of them. Just buy them from the website of nowhere else. Sorry, I had to say this because this is something that each time I hear it, I'm like, bruh, like, and they're super cheap, like they're 30 euros or something.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned just to very quickly bounce off of this, but you mentioned that governments can have access to your SIM cards, and it's much scarier than that. There's a video by a YouTuber called, I think it was Veritasium, who recently made a video showing that just like private people can hack SIM cards and get an SMS, intercept an SMS very, very easily without the need for the government to get involved. Can I
just make a quick addition to that?
Go ahead.
And also, when you live in countries like Turkey, privacy and your personal data is easily available, and it's very cheap, because most of the places where our data should be stored safely and securely is not, and they often get hacked. And when these systems are hacked, all of your information is out there, and it can be easily purchased. So there's also that angle as well of like how well the e-government systems working. And then in the case of Azerbaijan, our government has direct access to all of the mobile operators and to all of the ISPs, and that's how they work. That's how they have been working. They have backdoors, and whenever they need information on any of the users that they're tracking, they can easily obtain it.
So I have probably 100 more questions, but I'm starting to be mindful of both of of all three of your times. So I'm just gonna keep it down to one question for each of you, Ozzy and Arsu. Ozzy, you mentioned trolls and you mentioned troll comments, and I just wanted to bounce off of one that I got yesterday on the Iran video that I found quite funny, which was someone saying that all the activists we mentioned in our video are all CIA spies and paid by the US government to undermine the government of Iran. So my question was, how much are you paid? And can you put me in touch with your operator so I can also get some of that money myself? No, but more seriously, though.
Who do you think edits your videos with what money?
But more seriously, though, actually, this does come down to kind of related to the previous question, which is, I know that those accusations get thrown around a lot, and I'm sure Arsu also gets them. I'm sure, like, basically anyone with an online presence doing any kind of political work gets them. But in your case, Ozzy, considering, you're a trans non-binary artist who's also vocally pro-Palestine, do you get the CIA accusation as well, or do you kind of avoid those because it's so patently ridiculous on its face in your case?
And I mean, in German, leave my body. Within past year, I must say, because of not working so much, that did not come on my way, or been like I was not labeled as that. But I think this whole like not trusting it's a very good question. I don't know how to answer it. This is something that goes around often in my whole community from different perspectives. And this like is built upon the whole trust level of being like, how can we trust one another? And it has been basically the Pandora box of the whole community when it comes of coming together and like trying to work together. There's always this question of this person has been working for the government. What government we're talking about? It's also like not so clear. Who are we talking about? But it is some sort of accusation that you cannot also always answer it super easily because you don't know who you can trust. Like in my case, when there was a break into my house up until today, I never I never doubted that this can be someone from our team that has been working, but still can be the case. But how to deal with these accusations or these topics, I think for me, I have a very clear answer. I have been existing out there since forever. Like people, like you can very easily find my background. Even my account before my transitioning exists out there, even though I migrated to a new account. So it's like the background is very simple to find it. And like this whole, like, it is not so hard to figure out the background and the living quality of someone. And then thinking of like this being a CIA agent is like quite ridiculous, but I understand the suspicion, I must say. Like it's something it's understandable, but at some point you need to follow closely someone's work for 2 or 3 months and when you see whether you find any contradiction or not. So for sure, when you're meeting a random person who is like doing activism suddenly, especially in my case, because I was not really involved in the civic movement, I understand the suspicion. Like to be honest, to be completely honest, with all the shits that's going on in the world, it's good to enter with the suspicion, but at some point stuff are fucking ridiculous. Like, can you imagine that CIA would pay someone like me? Like, it's like I don't even make the paycheck, like it doesn't. And at the same time, following all the struggle that me and many other people in the movement went through to even exist, to even have a voice, it's like quite ridiculous because honestly, if they wanted to have a person like me with my profile to make it to the hierarchy of the whole people in diaspora organizing the movement and trying to just like influence the voices, influence the minds of the public, I think I would fit this profile very well. But I barely made it to any panel anywhere to sit beside anyone. Like most of the times where I spoke, I was involved in organizations. And I think this is something to keep an eye on. And whereas and it also, you can see at the profiles that went like ballistically high suddenly from like 2,000 followers to 500,000 followers. And they're still talking, they're still speaking. And these are usually the people whose parents have been working with Islamic Republic in the background. And there is certain like things that you need to look for. And when you like, in my case, either I'm a very good spy or you're just really dumb thinking that I am this person. Like it's either of these two things. And I'm not a spy, obviously. I cannot hold my mouth. I don't think I'm a good person for this job.
I have to say the bunny ears, dead giveaway for CIA, clearly. So, and Arsu, since you kind of bring more of a big picture expertise to the topic, so we're talking about transnational oppression, we're talking about digital authoritarianism. I think it's important to put that in the context of the rising authoritarianism we're seeing worldwide, and in particular, most visibly right now is the US, although they're not the only. Unfortunately, basically, we're seeing the same thing happening everywhere. The US has a complicated history as well with being involved abroad with a bunch of things and meddling with a bunch of things. But when it comes to transnational oppression, people often point out the case of, for example, Anwar al-Awlaki and his teenage son, who were killed by drone strikes under the Obama administration. Do you think those how do those compare to cases of like intimidation of, no offense, Ozzy, but like relatively low-level activists? And like how do those compare, and do you think we should expect something different happening under the Trump administration?
I mean, you should be prepared for anything in the Trump administration. Let me start from that. But I think, I mean, this is a really tough question, and I think a lot of the answer depends on comparisons. Like we can't. Let me rephrase that. I think the powers and the access that, for instance, U.S. government may have to technology is very different to the access that, say, a government of Azerbaijan may have. And the way that technology would be used could be used in different ways. Again, depending on the goal, right? What are they trying to do? In the case of Azerbaijan, in most of the cases, the goal is to intimidate the person, to damage their reputation, to make them reconsider what they're doing, to make it really hard for them to do what they're doing because they have to deal with reinstating the website or returning the content that was removed falsely or dealing with all these trolls and whatnot. It's really about stalling your work. It's really about making you afraid. It's really about, I mean, this is, if we're talking about DTR, digital transnational repression. If we're talking about actual physical repression, then obviously arrest, detentions, sometimes murder, and many other things that could happen to you. So if I understood your question correctly, I think yes, my answer would be that a lot of it depends on what are we comparing it with and in what context. The implications could be very different and the goal could be very different. So I would probably, think of it that way. But then also, having said that, US is still the place where we look for when we're looking for mitigation, right? Right now, I guess the NSO case, the NSO group, and the ruling in the NSO case, and
that's the Pegasus software, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Sorry, I sometimes forget. Not everyone may be familiar with Pegasus, which is a surveillance technology that allows the perpetrator to get access to all of your devices, including your camera, your microphone, and many other things. So please don't click anything. Although, it got more sophisticated with each reiteration, and at some point it was no clicks as well that they were able to use. So yeah, having said that, I think there's also there's this hope that some judgments can be made in the US, which would then have an impact on a lot of these companies stop selling technology or at least limit the sale of technology to the countries like Azerbaijan or have some kind of monitoring mechanism. I mean, I don't think it's going to really stop the spread of surveillance technology, and I don't think it's going to stop the authoritarian governments from purchasing surveillance technology. Under a different name in a different time, there will be more things as surveillance technology sold. But yeah, that's my take on this. But I also wanted to say something about your previous question on the CIA agents, if I may. I think.
You mean about me?
No. Well, yeah. I wonder who gave them the idea that CIA agents get paid a lot. Is it because they watch too much Hollywood? They think that these undercover agents have like fancy lives. But yeah, anyway, that was my question to the question. Because I get, I have been accused of being an agent too, and I'm like, how can you accuse someone as an agent to begin with?
Yeah,
where's the logic in that?
It's funny because so many accusations. It's either CIA or it's George Soros's or it's anything like that. And every time I get one of those, I'm like, well, which account are they paying it to? Because I really want to know. Like, I have some bills to pay.
Yeah, exactly.
So just because I maybe didn't phrase the question perfectly, I just wanted to press on it a little bit more. So obviously the US has much broader means of surveillance worldwide. Famously, like the whole Edward Snowden NSA
Yeah.
revelations are like completely incomparable to the means of any other government in the world. And even in terms of like their way of delivering violence all over the world, just like they just have a drone that can deliver a bomb basically anywhere on the planet is very much something that we're all aware the US has at their fingertips at any time. But I'm unaware of kind of lower level intimidation of specific activists acting against the US. Maybe they just don't care enough to deal with that. But it's something that in the research for our documentary, we've seen a lot of from other governments, from Russia, from China, from Iran, from others as well. And it's not something that I'm obviously like the US goes to the higher level when they feel like they want to do it, when they feel like they need to get rid of someone completely. But I'm unaware of previous administrations, at least, targeting lower level people with non-lethal threats, I guess I would say. And am I wrong on that? Am I missing something? And yeah, should we are we seeing signs that the Trump administration will behave differently?
Yeah, I don't know the US context as well to be able to answer that question. I think, but that doesn't change my original answer to this question, which was you should expect everything and anything from Trump administration, because I think that's been kind of the pattern since his taken office. But yeah, I think I'm not getting the question correctly. But within the US context, I'm not really familiar with on the topic.
No, I think we arrived at the same page of if it's happening, it's not something that I've come across, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen big examples of this coverage where technology has been used specifically to target someone. I think they just have like all the other powers and state institutions to do that for them. I mean, US has ICE and many other, I mean, they have Doge. So
That too.
Exactly. This was what I wanted to add. That like I think like one thing that is like the surge of something super ridiculous and super dangerous right now is like this whole facial recognition going around and this whole like love or lust for adding AI on everything. We talk a lot about the data, but the data is important. But as long as you have not processed the data, as long as you have not categorized it, it's not as dangerous. And I think we're at this tipping point exactly. I think this would become like the most important thing. And I think from US right now with this whole accidentally adding a journalist into a signal group about like I think like this whole like we're dealing with a bunch of monkeys basically with like lots of crazy tools in front of them. They just don't know how to use it, or they want us to think that they don't know how to use it, whatever. Like, let's give them some benefit of a doubt that they're not really like so behind with everything. But I think the most important thing that we have to deal with right now is this whole facial recognition and AIs having access to some sort of basically all the data centers that they were not supposed to have access to, and what comes out of that is like the most dangerous thing. And I wanted to add about like Pegasus shortly, that like it did also like Khashoggi, for example, the person who was they had Pegasus on his phone since a year and a half. And this is also something Israel developed. Let's shortly talk about that. Like it's like Israeli software that was sold to pretty much every government that had the money and could pay for it. But at the end of the day, there are still ways for figuring out if you have Pegasus on your phone. If you are like there, it's pretty sophisticated, pretty like there are just a bunch of few workshops to know how to do it and stuff, but there are still tools for that. And it's like, I think this is a thing that I try to bring it up quite often, that at the end of the day, it's about how you use these tools and whether you keep up with everything that's coming up. Like one of the most idiotic way that the nuclear sites in Iran got actually hacked this whole Stuxnet in 2011. Was it 2011, 2010, I guess. Israel just completely run a whole malware on the nuclear sites in Iran, with this virus called the Stuxnet. And it's quite a sophisticated thing, but the way they executed it is so funny. They just added it on a flash drive, like a memory drive, and just like left one somewhere outside on the streets. And one of the people who worked there, probably some low-level security person, just found this on the streets and was like, okay, cool, I'm going to use it for my private thing. And it just needed to get attached to a device somewhere. And that was like so simple. No spy had to break in. Also, it's just like, like it was some. So it's like at the end, it's also come to the point of how you train your, like, I mean, I'm trying to teach Islamic Republic right now what to do, but like it's at the end, it comes about like giving a good tutorial of people how to not make basic mistakes. And also overnight, we also figured out our pagers can also go on fire or just explode. So like, like there are so many things people can do. It's like about learning what not to do or what to check. And one of the things that we do like right now in Europe is that when we're buying technology from, let's say, East Asia or from Russia or from countries that we have questions about, then we need to find another provider who checks them. Otherwise, like don't buy them directly from places that you don't find it. There are brands that need to like check certain standards, and these are the stuff that you need to keep an eye on. And I think at the end, lots of these things comes from the way you use tools, the way you use the stuff, and we need to educate ourselves on this, and cannot like let it be just and be like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna try to update this OS and hopefully it's gonna solve everything.
I think maybe I would just jump in quickly, because you already mentioned and talked about it extensively, Ozzy, what you said about the flash drive and the two-factor authentication. Right now, also, the need to inform oneself actually about these sort of things. And this is something maybe it's not being talked enough, or being talked now, is digital literacy and the importance of digital literacy. Actually, it just has to be highlighted more and more. I know that there are countries around the EU and some other countries who have schemes for teaching about digital literacy in schools, and but even those are having problems. Actually, I know that digital literacy is being taught as a course in the Netherlands, for example, or in some Nordic countries also. Digital literacy is being taught. Also, not only this, but how to handle misinformation and disinformation, actually, specifically. I need to say that I want to say that those measures have to be in place, and then they have to grow and they have to be expanded upon. Maybe this was something that we didn't talk about that much within the scope of this talk, but we have to highlight that governments have to do things. Actually, governments also have to take action. It's not always on journalists, it's not always on activists. This was something that we also highlighted in the documentary. Sometimes the matters and the measures should come from top down. It shouldn't always be bottom up. It shouldn't always be people organizing themselves. Yeah, exactly. Yes, of course, unless you're fighting the government itself. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I wanted to jump in and quickly mention as well.
I just wanted to like kind of as my closing thoughts, just because that's a very nice way to finish it, is do you remember that when we shot the documentary, when we interviewed Sandro, the cybersecurity expert, we were interviewing him in the middle of Cybersecurity Month, which is a yearly EU initiative about digital literacy and cybersecurity literacy. And even the cybersecurity expert we were talking to, we asked him, do you know like do you know that this is happening? He had never heard of Cybersecurity Month. So the efforts to like the outreach efforts by the EU to teach people about cybersecurity isn't even reaching the experts on cybersecurity, which was quite shocking at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, there's clearly so much to do, and clearly a lot of it is not being done well at the moment. Yeah, if each of you have some closing thoughts, and if you want to plug any platform where we can find your work or anything like that.
I feel like I've already talked too much. Thank you for hosting, and thank you for putting this together. And it was really lovely to meet you, Ozzy. And yeah, be present. I think lots of really good food for thought and maybe some ideas for another round.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, and I want to thank you also. Also, I must say you have a very soothing voice. It's really nice to listen to your voice. It's like
Thank you.
it's really good. Uh, Beside all the nice information that you're giving, or maybe not so nice information, but interesting information. Yeah, and I just like one thing that I should drop in the middle is that among all these worries and everything, the most important thing is, from my perspective, is to not leave social medias. And I think like this is a surge that I see between the communities, that people get frustrated and they leave social media, and then they leave like the extremes living together, and then the game is also gets much easier for whoever wants to rig this game. So like it's much more important for it's called like the gray zone society, who just only takes intake and never comments, never say anything, to just speak up. And if you're not doing this on social media, totally fine. Speak up on the streets maybe afterwards, or just like organize outside of this. Don't go into this zone of I'm trying to keep myself safe, because that makes actually everything unsafe for everyone. You yourself included. So if there is anyone out there who does not have Instagram, Twitter, or anything, it's like make a Smurf account, become part of the problem, but cause some problems at least for the system. And thank you so much for the invitation and also the documentary. I found it actually quite interesting to see how good it was also edited. I said that before the talk, but I really mean it. It was like really good visuals.
Thank you.
Follow Barely Informed. I mean, everyone following, they're already like your fans, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's funny that you mentioned not leaving social media, because I'm about to post a reel or a short in a couple of days explaining why I've given up on recovering my TikTok account and that I'm not even going to try anymore. So yeah, sorry, I'm
TikTok's
leaving.
a
I'm
whole
leaving
other beast.
TikTok, but I will still be present on other social media.
Yeah.
Ida, do you wanna close this off maybe?
Yeah, well, thank you so much to Uzi and Arzu for joining us for the panel. It was really, really interesting conversation. I loved hearing all of your input and insights, actually, like with Arzu providing the general picture, and Uzi, it was really nice to hear you giving us an update about the woman life freedom movement. I hadn't looked at it in that way, actually. And so it was really, thank you for putting it that way. I took some notes for myself as well. So that was great to hear. And a special thank you also to Stan for putting this together. It was a pleasure to join. And I really hope that it is just the start and we can do more things like this.
Yeah, I have a few ideas for future panels as well. So probably you will be invited back when relevant on the topics that are in the news. Yeah,
Sure.
thank you for my cat for the technical problems as well.
we all thank the cat.
Okay.
We all are grateful
We
to
all
the
thank
cat.
the cat.
We are thank the cat.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming, and yeah, have a good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Just here for a few more seconds. Yeah, but yeah, that was a really nice call. And I will be seeing you very soon, because we have a few more things planned this month, especially for those who are still watching, a special election coverage live stream on Sunday of next week, because there's the Romanian, the Poland, and the Romanian, the Polish, and the Portuguese election happening on the same weekend. So we're gonna have a big, maybe not all-nighter, but a long stream with a bunch of people to comment on all of those in the know. I believe it's this week. Yes, I mean next weekend, but this week, in exactly at the end of this week. Thank you for catching that. And yeah, have a good night, Gray. Have a good night, everyone else who's still watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.